preschool graduation, the principal announced the students' names and aspirations as they crossed the stage to receive their diplomas. Here comes Tommy. He wants to be an engineer when he grows up. His parents would clap and take pictures and so on until it was my turn. I was ready on the side of the stage to go across, get my diploma, and graduate from preschool. Next is Jennifer. She wants to be a mom when she grows up. And people laughed, and I didn't know why, because I didn't see how that was funny. It was my dream. I'd always wanted to be a mom for my whole 5 years of living. I didn't see why that was funny, but at the time, I had no idea that God would call me to something that I had never considered, something I didn't grow up believing I could do or was ever taught about, and that's the call to ministry. So maybe that's why I feel so drawn to Esther. She was about the age that I am now, and she was given the fate of thousands to put on her shoulders, and this is a large burden for someone so young to carry. After Queen Vashti was deposed, Esther was taken from her home to the palace and lived here with a large group of young virgins until she was chosen to be the queen. On top of that, God chose her to save the Jews. In Esther 4, starting in verse 12, when Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, he sent back this answer: "Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to royal position for such a time as this."
Yeah.
God chose Esther to be queen to fulfill a purpose, to save his people. But if Esther had said no, if she was not obedient to this call, God still would have saved his people, because the God we serve is not limited by human decisions. And he's all-powerful. But God chose to use Esther, right? Continuing in verse 15. Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai: "Go, gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maids will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. If I perish, I perish." This reminds me of Jesus in the garden with his Father, when he says, "If you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." Jesus and Esther are both so submissive to God in the face of death. They trust him, they trust his plan, even though they are in danger at this point, even though I'm sure they're so afraid. And in the same way that God called Esther, God calls each and every one of us. God reaches out to us and says, "Come with me. I have a plan for you. I have a purpose for you. And I will give you my Holy Spirit to help you." And our callings may seem insignificant compared to Esther's. But obeying God is never insignificant. It's never small, no matter how it may seem.
Yep.
What I didn't know at 5 years old, but I do know now, is that God has called me to preach the gospel. And though I faced disapproval from some family members through this process, my life has never been in danger like Esther's was. But it still took courage to respond to the call, because I was afraid. We are all called to be more like Jesus, but he also calls us for specific tasks. This could be our vocation our whole life, or it could be one moment. This could be inviting someone to church. This could be moving. This could be taking a job. It could come in so many forms.
Yeah.
But we're all called, right? And I want to leave you with a question and 3 things to remember. My question for you is this: what has God called you to for such a time as this?
All right.
Number 1, know that you are called by God and he wants to use you to accomplish his will.
All right.
Number 2, understand that it's okay to not know what you're called to. Pray to understand God's call. It's okay to ask questions. Esther had the Jews pray for her because she wasn't sure if this was God calling her. It wasn't direct in the same way we see in other places in the Bible. God isn't even mentioned in this whole book. And in the same way, I had to pray when I first felt called. I wasn't sure. I read the Bible. I talked to people I trusted to understand if this was my calling or not. Number 3, be bold and say yes to God. Isaiah 6:8 says, "Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, 'Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?' And I said, 'Here am I, send me.'" Step out in faith and trust that the God who called you is standing right beside you.